Hello, this is Gene. I did my video earlier today about Manchester United and the apparently new owner or somebody that's going to be in charge of the football operations. And I did mention certain things about Israel. And on this channel, I talk about current events that's going on. So I'm going to talk about this. I've had 3 or 4 videos about this. I don't know everything about the situation. I know enough. I have my own opinion about it. I think that this didn't come from out of the blue. I think that it was planned, and whether I agree with their motivation or not, it is what it is. However, in the United States, how we are reacting to this and how, I don't even know what the word is, we're over the top reacting to this, and how we chastise people with somewhat of a different opinion. Basically, everybody I've ever heard listened to on this entire subject is said it was an atrocity, should never happen. We pray for Israel and their people, and Hamas should have done it. But when you go past that little area and you talk about the actual event and what could have caused this, you can't have that that debate, because now you're a Holocaust denier. That's what I heard today. I heard that today on Megyn Kelly's show today. Now, again, I like Megyn. She's somewhat of a conservative voice. Not really, because she started really getting to be into it, which is about this trans stuff, when all of a sudden it was impacting young girls and what they're doing. And then all of a sudden she became this figurehead of this to be against it. And personally, I'm on her side, but it's interesting how she all of a sudden stands up for stuff for that when the issue is mental health for young men that are transitioning themselves to women. That should be where we should be focusing, not so much on the girls that are not getting their opportunities just because a boy comes in and takes their spot. It's unfortunate, but the real issue is something that's happening either in the home or the health professionals that are somewhat thinking this is something good, that affirming this care is a good thing. That should be where it should be at, not this. Clearly, they are just what are they called? Hysterical women complaining and complaining and complaining about shit being taken away from them, because in their entire life, that's all they've been told, that men have been taking everything and every opportunities from women forever. And then, women like Megyn Kelly will, when they get older, they say, that's not really true. And they're not really anti-feminist, but they kind of are, but not really. Because when the whole trans thing started, she didn't really get upset about it. She said, well, they're just doing what they're going to do. And, women with their hands off and don't really care. And they're all empathetic until it actually invades their spaces and take away opportunities from them. And then they do this. So she already had that mark against her, in my mind. I think she's on the right side of the issue. I think why she got there is a little bit suspect, but it's also she's a woman and she's quote unquote fighting for young girls. All right, it's not like all girls don't get every opportunities more than guys do. Young boys do. Boys are failing at remarkable rates, and we're not talking about that. Does she talk about sometimes in there? Yeah, when she's talking to Tucker, but she doesn't do it until he's on there or somebody that talks like this. The mainstream media doesn't give a shit about one young man. They don't. If they did, they would stop this shit right now when it comes, because they're the ones that are actually invading women's spaces. These are young men, boys that are transitioning and are occupying their spaces, and that's why they're getting upset. They're not looking at the actual issue there, which is mental health. But anyway, I don't listen to it much anymore, because especially the last 2 weeks, because of this Israeli thing. Because everybody is like this. They can't contain themselves. It's like they're all Jew inside. There's something they have to fight against. And I'm like, and a lot of the people that are actually talking about it are. So I get that to a point. And it was nasty and all that shit. But anyway, she played a conversation. I think it was MSNBC, and there was somewhat a conservative person there and a leftist, let's say. And of course, at this point, normally the conservative is the one that's more kept together, right? They're not talking over each other. They're not shelling at each other. So the woman, she got on there and she had basically the pro-Palestine, free Palestine thing. So that she preface it all by saying, clearly what happened was wrong. It was a atrocity, and we should pray for Israel and all that stuff, everything that we say. But then they said, well, why did this happen? And he just went crazy. He said, it's people like you on the left that support Hamas and are very happy that Jews got killed. I'm like, this is supposed to be somebody on the right saying stuff like this? And then it's like, it's all based about what those high school or those college people said, that they were pro-Israel or Palestine, and maybe they somewhat was pro-Hamas. I don't know. And then, then all these companies come out and said, I will not hire you because of your belief system, and your terrorist sympathizers and all this stuff like that. So he got really, really, really loud at her, and she basically kept herself. Now, I didn't see the video, but I saw how she just kept at the same level while he was just going crazy. And at some point he said, fuck you, because basically in his mind, he thinks that some media in this country who might have a left leaning, which pretty much everybody in this country in the mainstream media in the United States have, that they might somewhat support the idea of have a two-party system or a two-party state in the area. And but he basically by anybody who thinks that, or anybody that's has any type of pushback by any of the narrative that comes out, are Holocaust deniers. And that's what she said. She came out, this is like Holocaust denying. I'm like, because she started it with, well, it's not, the babies didn't really get killed that way. And people are bringing this out now. And she's losing her mind. She's being a hysterical woman as well, saying, oh, it doesn't really matter because this is like Holocaust denying. I'm like, okay, is the baby story right? If it's not true, why? Why is it out there like that? Why are they trying to push this propaganda on the West? Why are they trying to do that? And I'm going to tell you right now, 7 minutes in, I do not believe the story of the Holocaust. I am a very rational, logical person. Early in my life, I believed all of it because I was fed that when I was 12 years old. And then I have Schindler's List on every media at all. I have it in DVD, I had it on beta, I had it on VHS, I had it on DVD, I already said that, Blu-ray, and I had it on 4K. It's all a work of fiction for the most part. Of course, there was atrocities in those camps. Of course, people died in the camps. Those people shouldn't have been in the camps. But the idea that Hitler had this plan that he was going to exterminate all Jews and gas them. Now, this is what I was told when I was growing up, right? And this is how they continually change the goalposts when it comes to this event. I was told when I was 12 years old that 6 million died in the camps by gassing. Now it's not that at all. It's just now it's been 6 million, and it could have been for anything. Any Jew that was actually killed during that time frame in Europe is part of the Holocaust. So it could have been somebody who was a civilian that was in France that got killed by COVID, and they would have called that as a Holocaust thing. And now it's the same thing happened with Auschwitz. It was 4 million died there. Gassing, this is what they told us. Now it's 1.1. Treblinka, the same thing. Everything has been coming down. And really at this point, the highest number is probably 2 million that died in the camps. I will continually revert back to the Red Cross estimate after the war. Why would they go in there and lie about it? They said about 3,000 people died in the camps. Most of them were Jewish. So 250,000 died in the camps. Obviously, it's a bad thing. Obviously, it shouldn't have happened that way. But let's understand how people died in the camps. Early on in the camps, they were fed well. Again, you shouldn't be interned, right? We shouldn't have interned Japanese Americans, correct? We shouldn't have done that, right? I just want to make sure the double standard is looked at here, because apparently Jewish lives are more important than any other figure on the world, any type of ethnic group on the world, because they basically told us this the last 2 weeks, that basically this is like their, not Pearl Harbor, of course not, it could be that. It's more like Hiroshima, because we had 1,000 people died, and there's only 8 million people in Israel, and you put the thing around, and it comes out to be about exactly who died in Japan when those 40,000 people died at Hiroshima. So it's basically that. So it's basically we are at the same level of this, And I'm thinking, well, we had 3,000 people died in New York's 9/11 in a city of about 8 million people. Is that bigger? Because they started with that. This is their 9/11, but it had to get bigger. They have to be above everybody else. And it's something in their psyche because they, in their mind, they think they've been victimized for the last 50,000 years, that they continually have to put all their victim, everything that happens to them has to be at the very, very top. And if it's not, you're denying their humanity. I mean, it's enough when an actual Jew gets up there and just melts down about what Tucker said in a very rational way to Vivek Ramaswamy, and then you got Ben Shapiro just fucking going crazy about him. And I'm like, because he didn't really compare it, but he says we have 100,000 people in this country who died from overdoses because of what's happening. And a lot of this is young men. And this is something that Tucker actually talks about. And he's the only really person on the right that talks about it at that level, that has that type of following. And it's something that needs to be talked about. And you cannot compare the two because there's difference, because those guys that actually get and they put in their veins, it's not like somebody that's walking in and killing your mother. Okay, you're right, but it's a life. It's a fucking life, and we have to understand where all this is coming from. And you do not want us to go down the rabbit hole and see where all this has been funded. You say, well, it's all come from China. But it's all come from the same fucking people, Ben. And they know exactly why they're getting so crazy about this. They have to push it out there because if you go down the rabbit hole, this goes all the way back, people. And I could go forever about this, but there's more and more evidence that they were behind 9/11. There are more and more evidence they killed JFK. There are more and more things that got us involved with World War I and World War II that were all backed by these type of people when they weren't even part of an actual state, that they were just Jews doing this stuff. And of course, you can't say it. You can't even mention the fact, the influence that they have in this country. That's anti-Semitic. And now, if I actually say, I wonder why they were doing this, and let me look at the actual history between these two people, then that's anti-Semitic. And then if you have to look at how the atrocity is looked at, if it's not as vehement as they actually say it is, and you say, no, it's probably something less, it's still bad, but that's akin to saying that the Holocaust didn't happen. Well, I'm going to tell you it didn't happen like they say it is. You can call it whatever you want to call it. They intern Jews and other people, prisoners of war, and they make them work in these work camps, and a lot of them died. A lot of them died because we bombed the roads that was given the supplies. Typhus got into the camps, and that's what the Cyclone B was for. This was not used to gas Jewish people. I'm sorry. Just because because the Russians came in and they changed everything to look like there was gassing rooms because they wanted to have this propaganda, well, that's not actually what happened. All the real scientific evidence says that when they've checked the actual walls where this stuff is, it's not in the walls. That was only used when they walked in because the typhus was a big issue, the lices and stuff, so they take their clothes off, and they put this Zyklon B on this stuff to kill the stuff, and they would take the other shit, and they would burn the stuff in the incinerators, right? That's what they used it for. And then people also, they did the Auschwitz, and you would never see the other people again because they go to parts of the camp, and you just assume because everybody said they were going to die if you go this way, if you go this way. There are so many stories where these people have been in these chambers, and they somehow get out of it. They fall out of it, and they didn't really die. It's like, okay, as efficient as the Germans people are, if you look at how they actually did this, and David Cole talks about this in his documentary years ago. Now he's changed his tune, really. They all kind of do that. I mean, he wants to be somewhat in the public fear, but he doesn't believe in 6 million, but he believes around 2 million. Is it possible that one guy, I think there was some truth that they actually had like trucks that they went around and they put them back there and they would do that. And of course it was bad. All this is bad, right? But you have to look at the results of this propaganda that changed the Western culture, Germany especially, and all of Europe. And we're still dealing with it now. And we can't have a real debate on what Israel is doing with their policies. And I mean, most of the people on the left would always said that Netanyahu is a fucking fascist anyway, and she said that this morning. And so this is a good thing for him because he almost lost control of the country last year, almost got out. So there's a lot more. It's more than political. It's everything that goes on here. And the fact is we have some other intel now that says they shut down their military for like 7 hours during the time that Hamas did their attack. Kind of like what happened in January 6th when Trump says we need more people here, and Pelosi said, no, I'm just going to leave it like it is. This idea that they don't have, this gives them more power by doing something like this because they want Palestinians out of there. They want to have all that stuff for Israel. They've been pushing this shit for 50 years, and really the last 15 years especially. And it's like everybody knows this. Anybody actually looks at it. Now, again, I'm not a big fan of the UN. I'm not everything else that's been basically free Palestine for 15 years. They might be right here. And there is so much evidence that says they've been spying on the United States, doing stuff to subvert us for a long time. A lot of proof. At the same level that you could say somebody else killed Kennedy, you could say the mafia or Cuba or whatever. There's a lot of other stuff that says that it's probably a Mossad agent that did this, along with Lee Harvey Oswald. 9/11, clearly there was Mossad on the ground observing what was going on because they knew shit was happening. So they were ready to actually watch this. And they didn't tell American intel people. That's what I've heard. And I have some people, I know some of this stuff. The truth is simply this. From a religious standpoint, they don't look at Gentiles as their equal, okay? But when you get to the secular side, where a lot of Jews are, and they're on the left, they don't look at white people as their equal. They think because their IQ is so much higher and they dominate these fields that they're clearly better than anybody else. And I heard somebody on Twitter the other day saying, we're just all jealous. This is the same response that we get from Peterson all the time. A white dude that happens to have an high IQ, and said it's not the Jews' fault that they run Hollywood and the porn industry and the banks and stuff. They're just smarter than we are. And I'm like, okay, we shouldn't allow them to do it. And in most states in the world, or countries in the world, you would stop like a small minority try to run all these areas. Does people really care that they run? I mean, at some point, would you really care about them running Hollywood and the porno industry? But let's just talk about the influence that they had in Germany. The fact that Hitler came into power, for one of the reasons why, is because they were just killing the German citizen with their interests, because they're the ones that started to hold the banking system, and they would have high interest. And these people were just, they end up taking all their stuff because they can't afford it. And one of the things he did is he came in and said, there's no longer, it's going to be 0%. We're going to finance it through the government. And there's going to be no more of this. That's called Jewry. And you don't want this anymore. And that was right away that the entire Jewish apparatus came up after Hitler, or came after Germany. And they declared war on Germany before there was any quote unquote death camps, or before he told them to leave to go to Palestine. Before all of this stuff, they already declared war on Germany. And they also was the reason why everybody got involved in World War II as well. And a lot of people said they start World War I. And people, look at what they did in Russia. The Bolsheviks were all Jews. I mean, you can sit there and just act like, no. They're the victims and they didn't do anything. They have no influence at all. And then if we actually question their motivation, why do they continually do this and not have, I heard this stuff all the time. If Israel goes in, you could have peaceful settlement. It's only Hamas that wants to stop everything. And that might be true. I don't know. I understand it's bad. I understand it's atrocities. My issue is when people on the right that says they're all about free speech, they're like, if you have the wrong opinion about this, Now that's basically that's a thought crime. And now we're going to stop you from getting the jobs you want. We're going to put you on a list somewhere. And we've been saying this forever about the people on the left. If I don't believe the entire narrative that comes out of this, or I don't really trust the actual Israeli government, I don't even trust my own government. Why can't I not trust their government and believe everything that comes out of their mouths? I just don't. Why would I? It's like they lie about everything. So is our own government. And guess what? They're run by a lot of them too. I know it's kind of like part of the thing, you know? And just because we have so many people on the right are neocons and will do anything for Israel, I don't know why. They think it's because, is it all religious bullshit? And we guys like, oh, we got to go blow up this and carbon block this and do all this shit, all this saber rattling. It's wrong. All right, let me know what you think. I mean, again, these are good people for the most part. They're not really conservatives. They're not. But we look very, very bad here doing this. And the way that we actually talk about it. Started being so emotional, so hysterical. Like you're actually going to change the result by just going over the top with your emotions. This is something that's been going on for a while. This idea that they're going to go in and just wipe out Hamas, that's going to stop anything. There's a lot of Palestinians everywhere else that could start a new cell that's not going to do anything. Until you actually solve whatever the issue is right there, you'll never have that. Just by killing people based on that, their belief system. I mean, in their position, in their mind, that they think that they're in the righteousness. The people in Israel believe they're righteous. It's not that easy, man. It really isn't that easy. So it takes more than this. And before all this happened, there were a lot of people, even on the right, that knew that there was something that had to be fixed in Palestine, or something like this was going to happen. So it's not shocking at all. All right, let me know what you think in the comments, and you guys have a good day, and we'll talk about it later.